We are standing outside Bombay Stock Exchange, oldest stock exchange in Asia, which has seen many booms and many busts. But one thing has remained really common is the ability for Indian capital market to really stand tall. So what makes Indian stock market so unique? And given that we are in a vibrant bull market, what is the way forward for Indian stock market? And to really take that forward, it's my honor and my pleasure to bring on board someone who everyone loves. I have learned from, he's an original thinker and his word is always his bond, and I can vouch for it because every time we've requested him for time, well, he's always respected that despite his busy schedule. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Welcome, Nikunj. Welcome to the BSE, and thank you so much for having me on your new show.
Thank you very much. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? I mean, I can see your expressions are like a child in a candy store when I talk about BSE.
You know, Nikunj, it's such a historic area that actually gives me goosebumps to come here. If you just stand, this is like the epicenter of the Indian financial system. If you just stand here, you look north, you have SBI and RBI. You look east, westward, you have the House of Tatas, the House of Godrej is there. You go eastwards, you have the Indian hotels and the fabulous Colaba. You go back Bay Reclamations, where Hindustan Lever has its office, HDFC has its office. So we're right at the center of the financial revolution that's taken place in India. When I came in 87, 88, India was a backwater. The last street was the backwater in global financial markets. Today we are the third largest economy, headed towards the third largest economy, and the place to be. All eyes are on the last street. So it's been a lovely journey, and thank you so much for showcasing it.
So we look here, there is SBI, we look there is the House of Tatas, but if I look up, there is the House of Damani, your office is there.
Thank you, that is my old office, I did share it. And I must remind you, Nikunj, that too many people say that, you know, the village is your globe, but Paris is my hometown, to imitate Gertrude Stein. But the same way, I mean, I might have traveled the village, but Bombay is our hometown. And this building, this iconic BSE 25-story building, is the Eiffel Tower for investors, because everyone who's come to make your money, from Dhirubhai Ambani to Narayan Murthy, you know, the streets maybe look like they're paved with asphalt, but actually they're paved with gold. And the rise of the Sensex perhaps redoubles my effort to say that, because when I came, the Sensex was maybe 1,000, below 1,000. It's now closer to 75,000.
These the intraday swings are 1,000.
Intraday swings 1,000. I mean, extraordinary journey. Some of the big corporations have gone from a few thousand crores to a couple of lakhs. And it all started in 91 day when Manmohan Singh presented his dream budget to Parliament, and that broke the ethos of static, regulated, slow growth economy to fast growth modern economy. So it's been an extraordinary journey for the last 30 years.
What makes Indian stock market so unique and so resilient?
Well, I think, let me tell you a bit of history which people may not remember. My father was in the stock market, and he's lived through very painful times, the Dividend Control Act, the China war, when the markets were closed and there was not foreign investment coming into India. So they were non-existent out there. Then in 1977, the winds of change swept India. The Congress government was thrown out and a new Janta government came into power. And the industry minister used to be an old socialist called Mr. George Fernandes. And here's where we learned the law of unintended consequences. Because what George Fernandes did was he told the MNCs in India at that time that either you dilute your shareholding below 40% or you get out and leave the country. So companies like IBM and Coke left India because they didn't want to dilute their shareholding. But companies like Colgate, Nestle, Hindustan Lever stayed on in India and gave shares to the public. And as history will record, these shares have gone on to become multi-baggers, 100x, 1000x, 2000x over a period of time. But they also gave India a good corporate governance. People understood how good companies behave, how good companies are managed. So we were 20, 30 years ahead of China in good corporate governance. And that is now reflecting in the markets because we have such a nice group of globally. While China, even the best companies are now trading at 20, 30-year lows. So I think that the law of unintended consequences took place because you had Mr. Fernandes throwing the companies out because he didn't like foreign capitalists. But that, in fact, led to better corporate governance and a better pool of investable companies for India.
Mr. Damani, the financial market economy right now, which is the market cap of Indian companies, is actually higher than the real economy. And that is a clear indication of the migration of economy, like Amrit Kal for financial investors. Why is that happening?
Well, you know, I'm not sure there's any particular reason, but, you know, we are going through a bull market. As Homi Kharas points out in his new book about the global middle class, he says the global middle class started with, you know, a few 100 million people in Victorian England. And now I think by 2030, there'll be 5 billion people in the middle class. And I think the next billion people are more likely to come from India than China in the middle class. So the middle class demands financialization of savings, better education, action on climate change, so many things. So it's the middle class bull market that is leading it. And every bull market has its own thesis. For example, you recall when we first met in 2000, there was a big bull market in TMT stocks. It was presaging the age of the internet and presaging the age of zero communication costs. And you know what happened to those stocks at that time. And after that time, the bad ones got weeded out, the good ones continued to perform. I think what we're experiencing now, perhaps, is this great middle class revolution. I think this bull market we call the middle class bull market in India. I think that will create prosperity, wealth of a dimension that we're not yet familiar with. Another big city which is as buzzing and as exciting as Bombay happens to be Tokyo. And if you remember in 1964, India won the Olympic gold medal in the Tokyo Olympics. But that time Japan was a beaten third world country. Over the next 30 years, the Nikkei went from 1,000 to 40,000. Companies that were not well known outside like Sony, Honda, Hitachi have now become well known companies. So the India bulls, which include me by the way, Nikunj, believes that India is on a similar trajectory. That over the next 25 years, as Japan went from a third world country to a first world country, Indian economy will go from a third world country to perhaps the third largest. So we are very hopeful.
We are using the word Amrit Kal. The meaning of Amrit Kal is something which is long and something which is for eternity.